Hello to our friends watching on YouTube. We got a great show lined up for you today. Andrew Marchand from The Athletic slated to be here. Still not even 100% sure if he will be. He's a busy guy. There's big news breaking in the world of sports media. So slated to talk to him on the show today. Sam Yarnell will be here coming up in 10 minutes. We'll talk some NFL with him, talk some baseball with him as well. Big news out of the world of LIV Golf and the PGA Tour. It's all week it's been this slow trickle of news when it comes to LIV Golf. Now you've got the PGA Tour and its membership reacting to the idea of LIV Golf potentially folding up shop. Scott O'Neill says that's not going to happen. But obviously a lot of conjecture around what should happen with LIV Golf, with LIV golfers, so to be, and where their place is on the PGA Tour, if there is a place for the remaining LIV golfers. We'll get into that coming up a little later on in Odds and Ends. But we start things out, as we always do, on this Thursday edition of the show. It's time for the big story. And the big story is presented by the Daily Wrap. It's our Substack newsletter, Monday through Friday. It is fantastic. If you have not checked this out yet, every day we send out a newsletter, a written sort of synopsis of what we're talking about here on the show, covering the top stories of the day. You can get it delivered to you for free. All you got to do is subscribe. Just scan the QR code right there and subscribe to the SportsWrap Substack. We appreciate you doing so. All right, big news from the world of the NCAA and the NFL. Because where are all games fought out these days? In the courts, of course. And the latest example of this, emerging over the last 24 hours, is this Louisiana state court that is temporarily blocking the NCAA from enforcing its professional sports restrictions against a specific group of athletes. Now, this is not a blanket ruling that says if you were drafted into the NFL or if you signed with an NFL team and you get cut before the start of the NFL season, you can go back and get another year of college eligibility, a fifth year, and go play college football. That is not what this is yet. What it is a certain group of athletes, a specific group that includes several undrafted NFL rookies who had signed contracts and are currently in training camps. They may not make the team. So they want to have the option to go back to school and play for another year. The most prominent in all of this discussion is this guy. You may have heard of him, Jack Pyburn. Played at Florida State, played at LSU. He signed a 3-year, $3.1 million deal with the Buccaneers. He already received $115,000 guaranteed. And he's already played in one NFL preseason game. Had 2 sacks against the Jets, so he's got a shot to make the roster. But he could, under this ruling, if the Buccaneers decided, we're going to go a different direction, he could get a 5th college season if he leaves the Buccaneers and go into the transfer portal. And the NCAA is like, not so fast, Lee Harvey. We can't have this sort of thing. But look, this is sort of the Hell's Gate that's been opened up between college sports and the NFL right now. And it's going to be a problem for other leagues as well if you've got guys who go and play professionally, even so briefly in a preseason, and want to go get back their amateur status in the NCAA. There are a bunch of players that this impacts. Seattle running back Anthony Hankerson, Cleveland tight end Daquan Wright, Arizona safety Wydett Williams. 33 athletes joined in on this case. Now, this is a temporary injunction. This is not a final ruling as it relates to this case. But for now, it is going to put these guys in play to potentially go back and play college football and enter the transfer portal and potentially, jump on some rosters very late in the game. And this is what you get And remember what opened up all of this? NIL. College athletes getting paid. And I said it years ago when this started to take place, when the whole Ed O'Bannon thing happened. I said this years ago when this all started to take place. There are the intended consequences of these rulings by the courts, and there are the unintended consequences of what could come from these rulings. And you're starting to find out that you don't know what you don't know. And the NCAA and even the NFL's got to be like, my God, now we got to worry about trying to get money back. How are we going to avoid these contracts? All these different things that now get involved in this sort of situation. If the professional participation prohibition ultimately goes away, college football could effectively become a minor leagues, a fallback league for the NFL. An undrafted rookie could attend an NFL training camp, play in preseason games, get released at the 53-man deadline, go back to college, collect NIL, and then try again for the NFL the following year. What a mess. What a mess. And it all started with, we want to be compensated for our name, image, and likeness. And now you see all the different Pandora's boxes, in the plural, that this is opening up for college sports. And it's why somebody has to jump in here. It's why Congress, God, I hate having to say this, because I don't want Congress involved in sports. I'd like them to be figuring out other things. But somebody's got to do something at the federal level to reel all this in. Because what's going on right now is utter chaos. And there's really no end in sight. And that's the big story. All right, Sam Yarnell's going to be here. We're going to talk about the NFL. Vita Vea gets a 1-year, $30 million deal with the Buccaneers. What's behind all of that? What does it mean for Baker Mayfield, if anything? And a big loss in the receiving game for the Houston Texans. All of that coming up as we continue on this Thursday edition of SportsWrap. Welcome back to the show. Andrew Marchand slated to join us coming up in 10 minutes. Get some thoughts with the sports media columnist over at The Athletic. Lots going on in the sports media. Has Tony Romo officially been disappeared? Is that it? Talk to him about that. Get his thoughts on the latest Pat McAfee, Stephen A. Smith news, and well, a whole bunch of other things. Sam Yarnell is here after I've had my say in the big story. Sam, I want to get to this Houston Texans thing, but let's start with the Buccaneers, who had two big, I guess you could say, contract kerfuffles going into this, preseason, this training camp. One is Baker Mayfield, the other was Vita Vea. They've taken care of the Vita Vea issue to the tune of 1 year and $30 million. He'll stay with the team now through the 2027 season. I can't understand how it took this long to figure out a solution that at the end of the day seems pretty simple.
Oh man, the Bucs are a disaster. I mean, you and I, we've talked about it for weeks on this show at this point. The Bucs, they're just an abject disaster at this point. And the deal to Vita Vea is just all the more example of that. You have all the reporting come out, and I mean, everyone knows what was going on with it. He wanted to be traded. He didn't want to play there anymore. My guess is, honestly, he probably still doesn't want to play there. Todd Bowles is as good as fired. I think we can all agree on that. There is no chance that Todd Bowles sees another season as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers head coach, short of like a miraculous Super Bowl run, honestly. Vita Vea did not want to be there. My guess is Tampa Bay did not get back what they thought they were going to in terms of a return from these teams that we saw were reportedly in. I think the Lions and the Bills were the two teams that were super in on Vita Vea. They probably weren't offering what Tampa Bay wanted, and they figured, hey, we'll pay him $30 million a year and see if, by the trade deadline, we can offload this contract and get someone who's got an injured defensive tackle. That's really the only play here for Tampa Bay. Listen, I get it. It's the NFC South, right? No one's ever going to have staunch belief that someone should win the NFC South going into 2026. That's just not how any of these rosters are constructed. But if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you didn't need Vita Vea to put yourself over some proverbial edge, right, in terms of this entire NFC South and winning this division. Unless you had real confidence that you're going to make noise in the playoffs, which, I mean, let's be honest. Again, another thing we talk about year in and year out, there are about 8 teams in the NFL that believe they can make significant noise in the NFL playoffs when they come around. There are about 8 teams that are going to get in and say, hey, you know what? This is going to be fun. Let's see. And then the other 16 teams are going to be competing for draft position by week 14 or 15 of the NFL season, and they're not going to matter. It's how it happens every year. Do the Bucs need Vita Vea to make themselves, or I should say, does the Bucs having Vita Vea make themselves one of those 8 teams that believe they can really make noise in the playoffs? It shouldn't, especially when the Baker Mayfield thing's still going on, and he's been very upfront and very candid about, I'm not going to talk about my contract while football is being played. You had an opportunity to fix it, you didn't, and now we're not going to talk about it. So, yeah,
I understand
abject disaster in Tampa Bay. This season is not going to go well for them.
But
Jason.
I understand the Baker Mayfield conundrum more than I understood the Vita Vea one, because at the end of the day, Baker Mayfield's 32 years old. I mean, you know, he's close to that tipping point where a guy could start to go south. And if he doesn't play well, I mean, they hold all the cards on Baker Mayfield because they can franchise tag. So on the Baker Mayfield side of this, I know he's going to be grumpy and he's going to piss and moan, and that's all fine. But at the end of the day, if he doesn't play well at the end of this year, you say bye-bye. And if he does, you franchise tag him. So they hold all the cards on the Baker Mayfield front as far as I'm concerned. I want to talk about the Houston Texans, though. Because as much as we got on C.J. Stroud, and rightfully so for the way he played last year in the postseason, and as much as we've talked about the pressure that is on him this upcoming season, when you go and look at that wide receiver room in Houston, it's a legitimate concern. It was a legitimate concern before Jaden Higgins tore his ACL. And now it's even more of a concern that going into what is, I think, perceived by most to be a pivotal season for C.J. Stroud, he's going into the season with Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Jalen Noel, Xavier Hutchinson. And that is not putting your quarterback in potentially the best position to succeed in a year that is thought to be a make or break year for him.
Interesting. I think we look at Nico Collins like completely differently. Nico Collins to me is talent-wise.
After that, and how many times does Nico Collins get hurt in the course of a season too?
I mean, not as much as like the other guys, quite frankly, that you mentioned, but yeah, sure. CJ Stroud has a top 7 wide receiver and not a lot else. There are a lot of quarterbacks out there who have that or worse and still perform better. I'm not going to do the whole CJ Stroud never has any weapons thing, and that's why he's not successful. CJ Stroud regularly makes horrible decisions, and quite frankly, all he has to do is be a middle-of-the-road quarterback with that defense. All he had to do last year was be a middle-of-the-road quarterback with that defense, and he would have gone to the Super Bowl. I think we can confidently say that, but he didn't. He was horrible. Like, statistically, one of the worst quarterbacks in playoff history. So,
it's asking a lot, though. But it's asking a lot of that defense if you're going to put so little of an emphasis on the offensive side of the ball.
I don't think they have put that little of an emphasis. They spent top 5 draft capital on a quarterback that simply did not work out. They've got a guy who I will stand on being a top 7 wide receiver in the league. They've got a tight end who's perennially in the top 10 in terms of pass catching and touchdowns. Like, Dalton Schultz is not anything to shake a stick at either. The offensive line isn't as horrible as, like, let's say Joe Burrow's dealing with up in Cincinnati. It just feels like C.J. Stroud is getting the benefit of the doubt a lot of different ways when it comes to this Houston Texans thing. The one thing I'll say about this with regard to the Jaden Higgins ACL tear, like, man, I don't know. Maybe this is just something I do to myself every year during training camp. It feels like everyone's getting injured. You had another Tyler Biadasz for the Chargers, another Chargers offensive lineman going to miss a whole year. It's like, my goodness, they're just coming fast and furious with the injuries in training camp right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, and you thought you'd have Alt and Biadasz out there, and now you have, and last year you lost Alt, this year you lose Biadasz, and Justin Herbert.
The year before that you lost Slater. Don't forget about that.
Yep.
This is 3 years in a row now for the Chargers.
Yep, and it should be mentioned, Higgins last year, 41 catches, 525 yards, and 6 touchdowns for that Houston Texans team. All right, Sam will return later in the show because we got to talk about some baseball. Andrew Marchand joins me in just a couple of minutes. We'll go around the sports world and talk about some of the biggest media stories making news. Welcome back to the show. So I said Andrew Marchand was going to be on the show today. He had to bail at the last second. Should have him tomorrow. This guy is not bad in his own right. It's pretty damn good, actually. Robin Lundberg does a great job on women's hoops over at SI. Also the Robin Lundberg Show, as well over on YouTube. Does a lot of great live videos over there as well. So check him out there. All right, I have been watching a ton of the WNBA this season, and I watched again last night. And I am anxious to sort of get your thoughts on what was a weird game last night between Golden State and Minnesota. Extremely low scoring. I mean, there was 6 minutes left in the third quarter, and Golden State had 35 points. I mean, it was wild to watch. And they battled. And they were able to get it close late in the fourth quarter before Minnesota pulls away. First of all, before we get to the Olivia Miles aspect of that game and her ankle injury, I'm curious to know what you think about the fact that Minnesota's played them 3 times, beaten them 3 times, and seems to have their number. They're going to play one more time again, I think, next week. So give me your thoughts on sort of that matchup and why it is that Minnesota matches up so well against Golden State.
Well, it's not even just they match up well with them. They're just better. It's not even close. The Valkyries are a really good story and a really competitive defensive team. They're really well coached. They got a lot of length, athleticism, but they don't have any primary scorer. The Valkyries cannot create buckets in the half court. They don't have a number one. So
is that supposed to be Gabby Williams though?
No, that's not her game really. She's more like a Swiss Army knife kind of player. Like Gabby Williams is not that kind of. She's never been that kind of scorer. She's not that kind of shooter. They don't have that player. Veronica Burton is can put some pressure on the rim. Caitlin Chen can give you a few buckets off the bench. Salon's probably their best, just pure scorer in a sense. She comes off the bench, but that's why the Valkyries spam threes the way they do. They don't really have a player who can consistently create and get buckets. They shoot a lot of threes and they play lockdown D. The threes don't fall. They're in a little bit of trouble because they are the number one defense, and that's why the score was low. But on the other side, they go against the Minnesota Lynx team that is also top 3 in the league in defense and just happens to be electric offensively and completely balanced. Because what I'm saying about the Valkyries, the Lynx have several players who would be the number one scorer on the Valkyries. And their starting 5 are all averaging at least 14 points per game. Kayla McBride is an elite 3-point shooter. Nafisa Collier, we know she's been an MVP candidate in the past. She's back healthy. Natasha Howard's had an all-star season for them. Courtney Williams, perhaps the best mid-range shooter in the entire league. And then you throw in Olivia Miles.
Talk about the Miles injury last night. She limped off the floor, left the court briefly, came back out, didn't play in the rest of the game, limped off as the game ended. She's had some injury issues, throughout the season. Give me a sense for what they do with her going down the stretch. I'd imagine they're going to play it very cautious.
Well, the good thing for them is they have the World Cup break coming up here. So, it was clearly an ankle injury. The textbook, she stepped on Collier's foot, tweaked that ankle. I don't know how serious it is. That can be up to a few weeks, obviously. But they only play 3 more games until September 18th. So they play tomorrow. They play, I think, the Valkyries again Monday. And then they have 1 game on the 30th. And then they don't play again till the 18th. So I think that's the worst case scenario. is that Olivia Miles misses those 3 games and then is back when they get back to action in September.
When you watch Olivia Miles, and we saw her obviously at the collegiate level at Notre Dame, and how good she was there, are you yourself surprised at the way she has transitioned so quickly to the highest level of basketball in the world?
Yes and no. Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised. I won't lie, right? Like, Notre Dame and then TCU and then going into the pros. But there's 2 things here that are at work. One is a credit to Olivia Miles, because I think the initial scout on her would have been leave her to shoot, right? And she has become a good 3-point shooter already. And she's also not just a catch and shoot spot up 3-point shooter that she's hit. She's kind of turned that sidestep 3 into a signature move so she can create her own 3-point shot on top of that. Then you factor in that she went to a machine, right? Like, she went to this was not a normal number 2 pick in the draft. The Lynx had that pick because of the pick swap with Chicago. And, the Lynx, it's an overhaul of their roster from last year because they had Alana Smith and Jessica Shepard last year. It is a different team. But even last year, the Lynx were 7-4 with Collier out of the lineup because they've got a lot of, McBride's one of my favorite players in the league.
Oh, I love her. Yeah.
Cheryl Reeves, probably the best coach in the league. And then, now they brought in Tasha Howard to replace the front court that they lost. And then Miles comes into this system with that talent around her. She's improved individually, and she's found herself, I talked to her last week, and she's certainly aware of that. Like, she's very thankful to be put into the circumstances that she's been put into.
I've watched Minnesota a few times this year. I saw them play against Indiana in that great weekend matchup they had a couple weeks ago. Is that the team, if you look at one team that you think gives them the most trouble in the playoffs and could be the fly in the ointment, is it Indiana?
Yeah, I think it's definitely Indiana. I think Indiana is the only team that can keep pace with them over a series, because Indiana is the only team that can match them blow for blow. Vegas can maybe do it, but I don't trust Vegas's team speed or depth quite as much. The Dream are a good squad too. They are tough. But again, I don't know on the scoreboard if they can compete. That's the difference to me is the Lynx have that balanced team that I was just talking about. They can score from everywhere. The Fever are not as balanced, but their heavyweights are all knockout punchers. So, that's the thing. And the Fever are pacing right now as the best offense in the history of the sport. So you put those two together, and I think that is the team with the best chance to compete. In that game that you mentioned also was not perfect circumstances for Indiana, because they had just played. They were in the midst of a stretch of games, and they had played on I think it was the Friday going into. It wasn't the worst circumstance, but it wasn't a playoff series where both teams are at their same rest.
Robin Lundberg is hanging out with us. I'm going to hold on to him for one more segment because there are a bunch of other stories that I want to get into, including AZ Fudd, who's now going to miss the rest of the season after undergoing arthroscopic surgery. You mentioned the Dream. I want to talk about them and the year that Angel Reese has had. And Las Vegas. How do we forget about the Aces? Oh, yeah, they are only the defending world champions. And after sort of, slumbering through last season, picked it up late in the year, won a championship. What do their prospects for winning another title look like as well? Robin Lundberg of SI and the Robin Lundberg Show over on YouTube. You could also catch them on Sirius XM Radio. We're coming back. Lots more to do. I gotta say, I had this conversation with Linda Cohn on the show a few weeks ago as we hang out with Robin Lundberg of Sirius XM Radio. He's on Mad Dog Radio. He's on Busted Open, which is now WWE Radio. He's on YouTube. He's writing for SI. He's doing way more than any one human should. I had this conversation with Linda Cohn a couple of weeks ago on the show, and she went into this whole diatribe about, if not for Caitlin Clark, where would the WNBA be? Who's watching other than Caitlin Clark? I did this yesterday on the show, Robin, and I'll tell you right now, I look at the attendance numbers, not last night, obviously, because there were only a couple of games, but the night before. Sellout crowd in Toronto, sellout crowd in Vegas, sellout crowd in Boston. A good sized crowd in Chicago. They play in that weird little arena there. This league, again, is succeeding in spite of itself or despite some of the off the court stuff that, the palace intrigue that's been so much of the conversation. People have to start understanding from a TV rating standpoint and from an attendance standpoint, this thing is thriving right now.
Oh, there's no question about that. I mean, look, they're doing the whole 30-year celebration. So the idea that it wouldn't be here is silly because it's been here for 30 years, right? But the truth is also that Caitlin Clark has been the catalyst for this. There's no way around that. And you look at the attendance, yes, the expansion franchises are doing great. The Valkyries are doing great. The Tempo are doing great. Franchise valuations show you how great the league is doing. I mean, even the Connecticut Sun, which is, no disrespect, but not a marquee franchise, they were just sold for $300-something million after they were purchased for $10 million, whatever it was, by the Mohegan Sun tribe. With that said, this all started in 2024 when Caitlin Clark came into the league. And when you look at the TV ratings recently, I think the game between the Fever and the Dream on Sunday was the highest rated WNBA game ever on cable. Mm-hmm. The game that followed it was the Taurasi retirement ceremony. Yep. I think it was like the Fever Dream game was 2.6 million. That game did 1.4 million. That was the highest rated cable WNBA non-Fever game ever. The finals last year, the highest rated finals game was 1.9 million. Every Fever game is topping 2 million this year, like consistently, except for the one on Ion, but that was the highest rated game in Ion's history and beat the NFL on NFL Network that day. So it's cliche to say the rising tide lifts all boats, but it's part of what I wrote about in my book. And it's just also part of the craziness of how it's all been discussed since. Like, it's just a common sense principle, right? Like, you had this change event, you had this asteroid that hit the Earth, and since then the after effects, the aftershock have it's almost an opposite metaphor because I'm trying to not destroy the Earth, but you get the point. The rest of it has gotten so much bigger since then. So now the league as a whole is thriving, but yes, Caitlin Clark is by far the single biggest change event that allowed that to happen.
AZ Fudd, this injury that knocks her out for the rest of the season, what does it do for Dallas in terms of any hopes they had in the postseason?
They're cooked. Dallas is done. I mean, look, if you play in the first round in the WNBA, I guess there's always a shot because it's such a short series, that 3-game series to start. But Dallas is in a tailspin. They're a much better team with AZ Fudd on the floor. It looks rough because she's got this now. I think she's hurt that knee 5 times. And the Olivia Miles, breakout, and she was picked after her. But with that said, AZ Fudd is an excellent defender and an elite 3-point shooter. So the floor for her as a player is very high, and that works in every single lineup. And right now, it looks like there's some issues behind the scenes with the wings, with the coach, and the dynamic with the players. And then you're just seeing, a lack of production on the floor. It hasn't been the same. And I don't see any way with the record that they have and the way that they've played without barring a huge turnaround. They're going to probably be stuck in that 8th seed, which means a date with the Lynx in the first round. They could possibly get up and catch the Mystics or the Liberty, which would give them a little bit more of a chance if they were to face the Valkyries. But regardless, I think the Wings are food for their first round opponent.
What's going on with the Liberty? Because it feels like they're just sort of simmering right now. I mean, I've watched a couple of their games this year. Give me a sense of where you are on the Liberty as it relates to the postseason.
I never liked their roster construction. When everybody was saying it was a super team, I was like, they're too slow. Too many players at the same spot, too big, too slow-footed. Obviously, Satu Sabali has had the head injury, the concussion problem. She's been out, and that was their big marquee acquisition, so you have to be fair there. And then the injury that is more important to me is Leonie Fibic has been out, and she's the one player who's sort of capable of guarding on the perimeter for them in the way that I'm talking about. So they are barbecue chicken without her. Even with her, it's a little bit more difficult. But I think that ultimately is the problem with the Liberty is I think they were oversold a little bit from the talent standpoint because of some of the names. but from the roster construction standpoint, they're not going to be able to stop the Lynx or the Fever from lighting them up on the scoreboard, given their lack of speed.
You mentioned Vegas in the last segment, in the final 30 seconds here. What has to happen for them to get back to a level where they can be championship worthy, if you feel like Minnesota is that team to beat?
Well, you can't count Vegas out because of their top players, right? Like Asia and Chelsea Gray and Jackie Young. But the problem with the Aces, and that's why they took the flyer on Kennedy Carter, which didn't work out, is they don't really have much beyond that. And I think that's where they're gonna, they're a little long in the tooth and they're a little short in the deck.
Robin Lundberg, check out his work over on SI. Also check him out on SiriusXM and the Robin Lundberg Show on YouTube. I always appreciate you, my friend, especially on short notice.
You got it.
Welcome back. Odds and Ends wraps it up 10 minutes from now. It feels like every day there's been a new wrinkle in a particular story we're going to get to coming up in Odds and Ends in 10 minutes. So stick around for that. Sammy Arnell, let's talk some baseball. Yeah, the Pirates got a good win yesterday. Brandon Lau with a walk-off. But look, I say this all the time. It is in all of sports. I don't know, and this could be me being hyperbolic when I really try to avoid being hyperbolic. In all of sports, I don't know if there's a position that actually plays as few games in the course of a year that gets, and I know football's a 16-game season, so I'm just talking percentage of the season and percentage of games. As pitchers, the amount of money they demand at the top level and the risk associated with that position, especially the starting pitcher position, as there is in all of sports. And Paul Skeens right now is the example of this, because we don't know what's going on with Paul Skeens, except that his velocity is down more than a mile per hour or two. It's down a lot. And he's got to figure out, in the middle of a team trying to still make a run at a wild card, although we can sit here and debate how legitimately involved the Pirates are in this wild card race at 63 and 66, that you've got your ace out there. It can't be, whatever's wrong can't be that mechanically in his arm that bad, because they're still putting him out there every fifth day. But at the same time, it's not the same Paul Skeens that we all had hoped to see. All I know is I'm glad I sold that autographed rookie card I had, because it feels like the stock on it is plummeting right now, along with Paul Skeens, Sam.
Yeah, the Paul Skeens thing is very interesting. I will say, the way you opened the segment, I thought you were going to go a completely different direction. But the Paul Skeens thing it's a very unique situation. I'll say this, me being the perennial online person that I am, and also talking to as many freaking baseball nerds as I talk to in a day, there is a large contingent of online baseball. I don't even want to call them analytics people. They're like physical therapists almost. They're scientists. They're baseball scientists, but not data scientists. They're baseball physiologists. They've been all over this Paul Skeens thing. They've been quote tweeting tweets from back in 2022 or 2023 when he was drafted, pictures of him at LSU doing the same thing. It's the flat arm syndrome, right? It's unfortunately something that we see happen to pitchers at high velocity a lot, and it's something that all 30 teams across Major League Baseball try, well, 29 teams, I guess it's fair to say at this point, try to get their high velo starters to stop doing. It's flat arm syndrome on delivery. It ruins starters' velocity in a very short time period in their career. It quite literally throws out their arm without doing any mechanical damage. There's no MRI that's going to show you that Paul Skeens' arm has been stretched out the wrong way and can't get up to that velocity anymore. It's a very fascinating theory going on across the kind of physical side of baseball right now, but man, I have never seen, the flat arm theory was always something that kind of middled in the background. Like, I'm sure our guy DA even heard about it way back in the day. But The thing is, I've never seen a fall from grace be like this hard because of it. You'll see a guy drop a mile an hour or two over the course of a year or two. The stat that keeps blowing everybody's mind, Paul Skeens, over each of his first 2 seasons in Major League Baseball, threw over 50% of his fastballs at 98 or 99 plus miles an hour. This season, that number's down to like 6%. It fell off a cliff. Like, it jumped off of a planet. I don't know what happened, man. I thought that yesterday was going to be the big solution. You know, he was scheduled to start on Sunday. They said, screw that. We're going to push him back. We're going to give him 8 days rest, pitch him on Wednesday, and still this happened. Like, I hate to say it, as like the biggest Paul Skeens guy maybe on the planet, it feels like it might be over for Paul Skeens. It feels like it might be over for him.
Yeesh, that's a tad bit scary to think of if you're a Pirates fan. Our friends watching on Sportsnet Pittsburgh, hello. Our friends watching on Masson may not be very happy today because the Orioles got jobbed last night by the umpires and the folks in New York. Pete Alonso hit what looks like a 2-run home run that should give the Orioles a lead. It's called a foul ball, Sam. They go to New York and look at a review. There's a clear shot down the line that says that's a home run. Now, apparently the explanation given by Major League Baseball is there needs to be 2 views of something that convinces the people in New York it's a home run. You know what? Sometimes one view will do. And the one view we had says that's a home run, Sam Yarnell. I mean, look, the Orioles aren't going anywhere this year. We get it. It's been an abysmal season. But this one was tough to watch last night.
I got 2 main things on it. Number one, if we this year have developed this incredible technology to where we know that a pitch is 0.1 inches away from an invisible strike zone, we can't figure out the technology to figure out if it went to the right or the left of a pole. Like, that's pretty hilarious. The other thing, and this is the thing that's going way underreported, Craig Albarnez is asking to be fired. What are you doing, Craig Albarnez? That is your team is in a wild card chase, and they are in the thick of it. You need to get ejected there. That call does not get reversed. You have to get ejected. As the Aaron Boone fan in the room will tell you, you have to get ejected in that situation. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. That, to me, fireable offense from Craig Albarnez, and I think he's done a great job in Baltimore. Horrible there.
By the way, George Lombard Jr. just keeps delivering for the Yankees. 10 games. He's played 13 games. 10 of them he's had a hit. He's been amazing in the field. We're coming back. Odds and Ends wraps it up next. All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Thursday. Again, apologies. We were supposed to have Andrew Marchand on the show today or tomorrow. We thought it was going to be today. Turns out it might be Friday's show. We will keep you up to date. Keep an eye on our X feed at the back page for guest updates and the like. A couple of reminders before we go. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast is available for you. If you haven't checked this out yet, go and subscribe today. Monday through Friday, the TV version of the show, you get the audio. So this works just as well. If you're listening to the podcast right now, you already know it works just as well as a podcast as it does a TV show. So take us with you on the go. If you're at the airport waiting for a flight, if you're on that flight, if you're on a train, if you're sitting in your car in traffic, if you're at the gym, if you're in the shower, laying in bed, the podcast works well. Make sure to go and check that out. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel is the place to find all things Sports Wrap with Jason Page. The Monday through Friday TV version of the show is available right now on our YouTube channel, Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. We've got extended conversations, Sports Wrap Originals, a great one up there right now about preseason NFL nobodies that became somebodies. Number 1 on the list, you may have heard of them. So go and check that out. Sports Wrap Shorts available there as well, although we haven't done any over the last week. We'll be getting back on those in short order. So make sure to go and check all that out. on the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. The Sports Wrap website is live. SportsWrap.tv is the place to go for everything I just mentioned and a whole bunch more. The Substack Daily newsletter, which is growing. Great content there every day. The Daily Wrap. It is our Substack newsletter. We also put columns up there. Go and check it out at SportsWrap.tv. I almost froze. SportsWrap.tv is the place to go for all of that. All right. I've run long here, and I got a lot to get to, as we do every day at this time. It's time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends. I got a lot to, Live Golf is in the news this week for all the reasons you don't want to be in the news, which is to basically say, they canceled their event next week in Michigan, which is supposed to be their season-ending event. They're playing in Indianapolis this week as they wrap up the season and try to get this investment locked down, like $250 million, something like that, to get them through next season. And a lot of the golfers are kind of mum on it. You're not hearing a lot from Jon Rahm. You're not hearing a lot from Bryson DeChambeau. And now this is starting to trickle into the PGA Tour, this entire conversation about the future of Live Golf, because what happens if Live either folds or the top golfers in Live say, you know what, we're just done. We're not doing this anymore. We want to go back to the PGA Tour. Well, are they going to be embraced by said PGA Tour? And that is an open question right now. We've already seen what's happened with Brooks Koepka and Patrick Reed as they get set to come back. Obviously, Brooks has already done so. He didn't qualify for the playoffs. Patrick Reed is going to make a return. We're all trying to figure out and read the tea leaves on how they're going to reintegrate Live golfers into the PGA Tour. Here's the rub, though. You've got guys like Scotty Scheffler who are out there basically saying, hey, you know what? Welcome them back. We want the best golfers playing on our tour. And then you have Rory McIlroy saying something very different from what Scotty Scheffler is saying. Rory McIlroy has basically come out and said, do we really need them? What kind of value do they add to the PGA Tour? And I got to be honest, that is really weak sauce coming from Rory McIlroy. You've got winners of majors playing on Live Golf that you could potentially have coming back into the fold in the PGA Tour. There is no scenario where having Bryson DeChambeau and having Jon Rahm and all these other, a few other guys that could certainly make a dent in the PGA Tour and get people excited about the PGA Tour. Not that they're not already, but even more excited. For Rory to say this is basically saying, I don't want to compete against the best in the world. I want it to be just a little bit easier for me to be able to win on a week-in, week-out basis. Not that he competes week-in, week-out. He's now just basically chasing down majors and playing in the playoffs. But for Rory to say that was extremely weak sauce for me. I appreciate what Scotty Scheffler is saying. They have to unite golf. Whether it happens in a year or 2 years, eventually Live Golf's going to go away. Sorry, Scott O'Neill, it's just the case. And they're going to have to figure out a way to make all this work. Last but not least in odds and ends, a 5-team deal in the NBA. Multi-platform, multi-team deal. Cavaliers, Nuggets, Clippers, all involved. Peyton Watson to Cleveland, Max Strus to Los Angeles as part of this multi-team deal. Watson's going to sign a 4-year, $88 million player option as well as part of all of this. So one more deal done in this NBA offseason that has felt like it has been endless. That one involving a few teams. We'll obviously keep you up to date as the NBA offseason continues. That's going to do it for us on this Thursday edition of the show. We'll see you back here on Friday. Thank you to our guests, Robin Lundberg jumping in on short notice. Sam Yarnell, as always, and all of you at home for watching. I'm Jason Page. That does it for Sports Wrap. We'll catch you back here on Friday. Bye-bye. We'll catch you back here on Thursday. Bye-bye.